Nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a f***ing con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician.
The fear, the horror, the hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy.
Gavin Newsom's presidential ambitions may have just died on live TV, and the fatal blow didn't come from a political rival. It came from the voices he could never control, shattering his perfectly polished image and exposing the raw, desperate panic underneath the tailored suits and camera-ready smiles. What started as a small, almost imperceptible crack in his Hollywood-crafted armor quickly spiderwebbed into a full-blown political meltdown, revealing a politician far more obsessed with his performance than with the grim reality of the state he governs. This wasn't just a bad news cycle, it was the public unraveling of a man who thought he had the entire world fooled.
I was on KBLA yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want for running president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive. Coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but he doesn't think you can win. What do you say to that if you could win look at the swing states, there's only 8 of them.
Nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician, just a stone cold, narrative driven politician. Nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, and that's a human being. With Newsom, you've got like this construct, this cardboard cutout of a person. I don't think people want that, but they might want it more than they want President Trump.
It all started with a friend, a supposed ally, who accidentally pulled the first loose thread on Newsom's presidential fantasy. On a progressive radio show, the liberal host Bill Maher recounted a private conversation that he probably never should have shared publicly. He was on KBLA, a progressive African-American owned station, speaking with his friend Tavis Smiley. This wasn't a hostile environment, it was friendly territory. When Smiley asked Maher who he wanted to run for president, Maher mentioned Newsom as a potential future candidate, but then came the gut punch. Maher admitted that Smiley, a respected progressive voice, shot the idea down immediately. He said Newsom couldn't win, that he was too progressive and too closely tied to the failures of California to ever appeal to voters in any red state or even a critical swing state. The implication was clear. Even within his own ideological camp, the Newsom brand was seen as toxic on a national stage. That single comment, coming not from a conservative critic but from a friendly voice in his own progressive circle, was the opening shot that echoed across the political landscape. It was a subtle but devastating blow that suggested the emperor had no clothes.
Where's your decency, Mr. President? Stop. Rescind this order. It's illegal and unconstitutional. And I said it, I'll say it again, it's immoral. You're creating the conditions that you claim you're solving, and you're not. And you're putting real people's lives at risk. This is a serious moment, and it requires serious leadership. And it's time for you to be a commander-in-chief of the United States of America. And I will have your back if you want to work in a relationship of trust and truth in the spirit of our founding fathers. But you come after poor kids, you come after families, we will do everything in our power to stand up and stand in your way.
But while a quiet crack had appeared in his political armor, another far more powerful voice was about to take a sledgehammer to it. For years, Joe Rogan, the undisputed king of unfiltered commentary, has used his massive platform to consistently torch Gavin Newsom for turning the once golden state into a national cautionary tale. Rogan didn't just offer political opinions, he painted a grim, visceral picture for his tens of millions of listeners. A picture of a state collapsing under the weight of its own progressive policies. He spoke of a California overrun by sprawling homeless encampments where human misery was on full public display, a place crippled by brazen, out-of-control crime where smash and grab robberies became a daily occurrence. He highlighted the mass exodus of businesses and citizens, people like himself and Elon Musk, who were fleeing the state's chaotic regulatory landscape and crushing taxes. Rogan didn't just criticize Newsom's policies, he relentlessly ridiculed the very idea of him ascending to higher office. His message was brutally simple. How can a man who so thoroughly wrecked California dare to ask the rest of the country for a promotion? This wasn't just political opposition, it was a cultural indictment that resonated far beyond the usual political circles, framing Newsom not as a leader, but as the architect of a beautiful disaster. With criticism now hammering him from both the left and the anti-establishment center, Newsom knew he was losing control of his own story. He needed to change the narrative, and he needed to do it fast.
Get your hands off these poor people. They're just trying to live their lives, man. Trying to live their lives, paying their taxes, been here 10 years. The fear, the horror, the hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
And that's when he made his most desperate play for the spotlight. As controversy and protests swirled around ICE operations in California, Newsom saw his chance for a dramatic pivot. He jumped in front of the cameras, not to offer calm, leadership, or clarity, but to launch a fiery, emotional attack on the Trump administration. He masterfully reframed the lawful arrest of individuals in the country illegally, many with criminal records, as nothing short of vicious, predatory attacks on innocent, hardworking families. He wasn't governing, he was performing. With every calculated crack in his voice, he twisted a complex law enforcement issue into a simplistic, made-for-TV melodrama of good versus evil, casting himself in the starring role as the courageous hero defending the downtrodden. It was a cynical gamble, a blatant attempt to hijack the news cycle and repaint himself as a moral crusader. But his desperate attempt to control the narrative quickly spiraled into a bizarre and career-defining political meltdown.
Then the reporter asked me, well, could Governor Newsom or Mayor Bass be arrested? I said, well, no one's above the law. If they cross the line and commit a crime, absolutely they can. So there was no discussion about arresting Newsom. And so, you know, what he's done, he's failed that state. He waited 2 days of that city burning and people getting hurt, officers being assaulted before he made any declaration of an unlawful assembly. He's late to the game. President Trump isn't late to the game. I keep hearing this term ICE raids. What happened with how this riot started is that ICE was serving a series of criminal warrants at a business being investigated for money laundering, customs fraud, and serious violations on sending money to criminal cartels that in Colombia and Mexico that fund cartel activities in the United States. It's a part of an overall conspiracy that ICE is investigating. So we're arresting bad people. We were enforcing laws and following up on a serious criminal investigation on cartel financing. So that's exactly what ICE did. And ICE took a lot of bad people off the street that day. We arrested a sexual predator, arrested gang members, arrested somebody that had an armed robbery conviction.
In a moment that reeked of pure, unadulterated desperation, Newsom stood before the flashing cameras and threw down the most theatrical gauntlet imaginable. He directly challenged the former acting director of ICE, Tom Homan, to arrest him. "The fear, the horror," he exclaimed, his voice filled with feigned outrage. "The hell is this guy? Come after me. Arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy." It was the most reckless and transparently hollow card a politician could possibly play, an act of utterly fake defiance. He knew perfectly well he hadn't broken any laws and that ICE had no grounds and no intention of touching him. He was staging his own dramatic confrontation, manufacturing a crisis in the hopes of producing a viral clip that would make him look like a fearless rebel, a political martyr willing to sacrifice himself for the people. It was a loud, flashy, and profoundly empty stunt, a piece of political theater designed to distract from the very real failures piling up back home. But the man he challenged, Tom Homan, wasn't an actor, and he wasn't playing along with the script.
He's dictating what universities themselves can teach. He's targeting law firms and the judicial branch that are the foundations of an orderly and civil society. He's calling for a sitting governor to be arrested for no other reason than to, in his own words, for getting elected. And we all know this Saturday, he's ordering our American heroes, the United States military, and forcing them to put on a vulgar display to celebrate his birthday, just as other failed dictators have done in the past. Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us.
Tom Homan didn't just dismiss Newsom's dare, he systematically dismantled it with the cold, brutal efficiency of a seasoned lawman. He called the challenge what it was, a hollow, pathetic, and embarrassing flex from a governor who was clearly more concerned with grabbing headlines than doing his actual job. Then, after exposing the stunt, Homan delivered a devastating counterpunch. He pointed out the staggering hypocrisy of Newsom's grandstanding. He reminded the world that while Newsom was now pretending to be a fearless leader, he had been completely and utterly silent for 2 full days as riots raged across California. While businesses burned to the ground, stores were looted in broad daylight, and law-abiding citizens were terrified in their own homes. Governor Newsom froze. He offered no orders, no action, and no leadership. Homan blasted him for his cowardice, accusing him of only caring about protocol and jurisdiction after President Trump, frustrated with the inaction, finally sent in the National Guard to restore order. The man who sat on his hands for 48 hours of chaos suddenly had the nerve to complain that he wasn't consulted.
I know many of you are feeling deep anxiety, stress, and fear, but I want you to know that you are the antidote to that fear and that anxiety. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
But Homan saved his most powerful blow for last. He completely demolished the central premise of Newsom's entire performance. Newsom had carefully and deliberately painted the ICE operation as a cruel, indiscriminate attack on innocent, unsuspecting families. The reality, as Homan revealed, was something else entirely. He exposed the biggest lie of all. Homan clarified that ICE wasn't rounding up random people getting groceries. They were executing a series of high-level criminal warrants as part of a massive ongoing investigation. They weren't targeting families, they were targeting a dangerous international money laundering ring that was funneling millions of dollars to violent, bloodthirsty drug cartels in Mexico and Colombia. The very cartels responsible for flooding American streets with deadly drugs and fueling untold violence. During the operation, they arrested convicted sexual predators, known gang members, and individuals with prior convictions for armed robbery. These weren't just simple immigration violations. This was a major national security operation designed to take hardened, dangerous criminals off the streets and dismantle a financial network that supported human exploitation and drug trafficking. Faced with this damning factual reality, Gavin Newsom's entire strategy crumbled into dust. The man who had tried so desperately to portray himself as a hero was instantly exposed for gaslighting the public on a monumental scale. He either knew the truth from his own state intelligence briefings and chose to lie for political gain, or he was so stunningly incompetent that he launched a full-scale attack without even bothering to get the basic facts straight. Either way, it was a catastrophic failure of leadership. With his tough guy act exposed as pure, cringe-worthy theater, he scrambled to switch tactics. He went back in front of the cameras, but the bravado was gone. This time, his voice was cracking and his eyes were glassy as he tried to squeeze out a few crocodile tears for dramatic effect. In a final, desperate move, he called on other governors to rise up with him and resist federal law enforcement for doing their job. It was the final, flailing performance in a show that no one was buying anymore. From a careless, revealing slip-up by a Hollywood friend to a full-blown public demolition by a seasoned law enforcement veteran, Gavin Newsom's carefully constructed political armor was left in shattered pieces on the stage. His cynical attempt to vilify ICE and crown himself a hero had backfired in the most spectacular way imaginable. Instead of a savior, it exposed him as a politician who consistently prioritizes optics over outcomes, drama over duties, and his own personal brand over the safety and security of the people he was elected to serve. He ran straight into the arms of the woke mob with manufactured outrage, staged emotional meltdowns, and pathetically begged for allies in a personal feud, all while the state of California continued to crumble around him. The show is finally over, the mask is off, and the audience isn't clapping anymore.